All right, last topic of the night. Um, before we pack it in, this one alludes back to the first topic, and I think it's a sore spot for a lot of people right now. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the infamous Platinum Plan. This you know collaborative effort between the Trump administration and a number of prominent black hip hop artists in terms of addressing the concerns of African Americans in the U.S. Um, it's not homo with the homies. There is, oh god, why can't I remember the name of the study that explains that perfectly? You know what we should do, Reese?
What?
We're gonna do a command, and we're gonna work on it together. We're gonna do exclamation point reading, and it's gonna link to a doc that just has references for y'all that are gonna be curated by
I'm
subject.
with it.
And because I'm thinking of this article that I read about self-identifying cishet white men who have sex with other cishet white men that they're friends with, but make every allusion to the fact that they have no homosexual proclivities. They're like, it's not actually gay because it is with this person that I know and trust. And it is simply for the fulfillment of sexual need and desire. That I think would be fascinating for y'all to read. So I think we should just have like a little like running references doc for people.
Office hours syllabus.
Yeah.
Big brain.
In the same way that like streamers do their like exclamation point loadouts in Google Docs, we'll do the same thing. But for readings, because we're academics. If you also want to see our like Call of Duty loadouts, we could do that too. But that's a side point. So the Platinum Plan.
Did you read that?
Yeah, the I think I think I have it on the blacklist of words, which is why it kept getting censored. Oh, for sure. So co-signers of the Platinum Plan: Ice Cube, who was like I guess the progenitor of this idea, Mr. Yeezus himself, and most recently Lil Wanya. I gotta admit, those are three artists that I have not really vibed with at all in my lifetime. Like, not completely.
Not even the Carter 3, bro. That mixtape was a bop.
So, like, that's like saying, like, not even the College Dropout. Like, yeah, but...
Also, a bop.
But it doesn't... Okay, but it doesn't change anything about them and what they have become over the course of their careers. I think those three are very emblematic of a larger standing issue that is happening with this policy and its relationship to, I think, galvanizing a black voter base. Right? There's a lot harping on tomorrow and people talking about, minority vote turnout, the non-white vote turnout, right? Saying that, particularly in battleground states, there's a hope that there's going to be a late push for minority voters, particularly black voters in states like Florida. And this is a lot of the platform. That's slut shaming is one of those words that we don't like to talk about. You can, the mods, it's set up as one of those words because it's not nice. Unless you take my class with me and we do an entire 3-week segment on deconstructing that word. My class of 16 women and one male student had a very interesting time working with that. It was a good time. Reese, what are your thoughts on the Platinum Plan, and what do you think its effect is on the construction of the image of blackness, not blackness in reality, but the image of blackness as a political pawn?
Listen, I said this to my kids at one point, more nicely. I don't care. I mean, I care who wins, right? Like, I'd rather put out the fire than keep it burning, right? Or I'd rather put out the fire than just contain it. But the reality is that the Democrats have been vanilla at best on the question of race, while the GOP has historically, well, not historically, but has of the last several decades been retrograde at best. And so, like, whoever wins in the next few weeks, they got to deal with my ass anyway. Because I'm an American. I'm a black American, and I'm not going away. And I'm going to do what I can from the places that I can to insist on a more radical anti-capitalist agenda that's going to advance the needs of working people, regardless of race. But we know, of course, that race and class map onto each other in pronounced ways. Look at the motherfuckers who are endorsing this. Black elites do not have the interests of the black working class. The treatment of black people as a monolith like deprives us of any kind of nuance. Deprives us of any kind of nuance. And so we just assume that like black people have the same political interests. So they clearly don't. They clearly don't. Like, first of all, like why are we heeding the political advice of Lil Wayne or Kanye?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does it say about the perceptions of blackness and black people that they seem to stand as heralds of black politics? The fuck, like, what is wrong with us? So that said, rich black people don't speak for all black people. Rich black people speak for rich black people. I mean, this program, right? It's a 2-page PDF, an infographic that's like really well put together and super cute, but is largely devoid of meaningful substantive change. Right? Like, Trump keeps touting this enormous economic growth. We were in a recession in February, right? So we still have a net loss of jobs, right? Just in general. So this idea that like President Trump is just this like illustrious job creator doesn't bear out when we look at the numbers. This idea about like common sense criminal justice reform, you know, for the first time in decades, we have tape of the Trump regime disappearing protesters, challenging reckless police brutality.
Mm-hmm.
So this rings hollow. This idea of injecting capital into black businesses, clearly, I mean, and this has always been the play of the GOP and the play of the Trump regime. Business elites are not all black people. This idea of creating opportunity zones, addressing health disparity, like they're naming issues that are important to the black community and then offering solutions that are just largely devoid of substance.
Mm-hmm.
Largely devoid of substance. And don't get me wrong, the DNC does the same thing. Like, the Democrats are not guiltless of this either. But I think that okay, we're talking about the presidential candidate. I think what's really disheartening as an Afro-Latino voter is that I think that the Democrats, well, as a Latino, less so, because Latinos are an interesting voting bloc. But as a black person, there's just sort of this understanding, like, black people vote for the Democrats. And so the Democrats don't actually offer like progressive ideas on race because we're a lock-in, right? Or at least they treat us like a lock-in. And then we get the hashtag version of policy. I'm unimpressed. I'm unimpressed. And so blackness becomes a veneer, a commodity, right? Something that that if we drape this policy in enough of this veneer, then maybe it'll be palatable and maybe we can lure in black voters. But the idea of robustly addressing the needs of working class black people, robustly addressing the needs of West Philly on the heels of the Walter Wallace shooting, I'm not hearing that anywhere.
Mm. Two follow-up questions then. Would you categorize Lil Wayne, Kanye, Ice Cube as what historically has been identified as a hotep? And secondly, would you say that this has any meaningful impact on that lock-in of the black vote that is assumed to be, betrothed to the Democratic Party? Do you think that those individuals are having any sway realistically, or do you think that there is anybody of black success that could have been a cosigner on this that would have pushed it in the direction of tipping the vote?
Do I think of them as hoteps? No. In part because their politics are about making money, right? And they keep couching this about on like, oh, black communities, black communities, black communities. These are three people that, to my knowledge, don't live in them. They're rich Hollywood people, right? They don't live in black communities anymore. So there's a level of cappery there that I just find hilarious. The other piece too is like there is no nationalist agenda, right? Like the thing with hoteps is about, at least in part, certain veins of hotepism are about black nationalism, right? Like returning black communities to themselves. This is about like, making friends with your enemy in order to advance your own causes. Like I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. I don't think that this is like a hotep move. And frankly, like I just don't think any of them are smart enough to be hoteps. Like as intellectually bankrupt as hotepism is. There is like at least a veneer of intellectualism there, and I don't like. I mean, this isn't to call like Lil Wayne dumb, but like I'm not getting financial or intellectual advice from Wheezy F. I love the term cappery. I think it's a good one.
Maybe that should be the first emo PhD cap. Just the actual doctoral hat.
The actual hat.
Yeah.
And then the last
that is
question,
the greatest reference I have ever seen.
It feels like Ana Maria Caso Cerrado. The second part, like, is there any black cosigner that I think would sway black voters to this? No, I don't think so. And in fact, I think that overwhelmingly people are dismissing this as coonery, right? To be very crass. People
Yeah,
like, what
I have
kind
seen
of
that thrown
Uncle
around a
Tom
lot.
bullshit is this? Like, and so, and the other piece too is like, I mean, look at the celebrities we're talking about. Like, B-listers at best in today's like pop culture. Like, nobody is swayed by this. Nobody is swayed by their investment in this. And I think that we have 2 pages of really nicely crafted pseudo policy and promises that is going to be grossly crumbled and disintegrated under the 4 years of empirical evidence that we've seen. I'm gonna take the actual video evidence of federal officers like disappearing BLM protesters over the promise of robust criminal justice reform. Like the idea that Donald Trump is going to usher forth criminal justice reform is about as fake as a $3 bill. It's bankrupt.
It
This
makes
is
you
so
wonder why.
transparently PR. This is
Oh
PR.
yeah, but so it makes you wonder why pick those identities, those particular people, right? Never minding the fact that we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they're interested in their own financial gain and protections. It feels like just the most unsuccessful basket to put your eggs in terms of trying to galvanize a black vote. It doesn't feel like it makes any sense. It wasn't even like a good publicity strategy, right? Like I think you're right to say that in the
Mhm.
grand scheme of social popularity, like this was a really low stakes maneuver.
Yeah.
And so I can't fathom the logic in thinking that this would be the place where you're going to convince people that you've got powerful, popular, prominent allies on your side that
Mhm.
believe in the bullshit that you're selling, right?
I
Despite the
think
fact
her.
that, again, a 2-page PDF is
Yeah.
not nearly comprehensive enough to account for any meaningful changes.
And or any meaningful changes to the issues that he's exacerbated, right?
Yes.
I think and I'm gonna keep it a bean. I'm gonna keep it a whole stack. Um, are there black conservatives? Yeah, for sure, right? Like I know them. I know some of them.
Right.
Are there black conservatives? Absolutely. Are there black conservatives who will vote the GOP party line up and down the ticket in whatever state they're in? That I have no doubt. But you have to figure. I mean, and there's been so much evidence of this, right? I mean, look at how catastrophically the GOP loses the black vote in almost every election, right? I think on a good presidential election, it's what, like 7%. I think that the GOP. I mean, I just I'm. Do you think Mitch McConnell has black friends?
Oh no.
No, of course he does. Like you don't even need to know him to just know
No.
that. To just
Yeah.
intuit. Mitch McConnell is not cool with black people. Mitch McConnell like washes his hands after he has to do like a press event that involves like touching and being around black people. I don't know what black people let Mitch McConnell touch them, but that's a different story. So I have to imagine that the GOP has such a stereotyped conception of what black people want and who black people respect, and who comprises like black public intellectualism and black pop culture, that this is what they offer. That this is their best stab at convincing black voters. Lil Wayne. They don't bring out like Michael Steele, for example. And I mean they can't because Michael Steele is a black conservative who's leading the Republican or the Lincoln Project. So like it's not that he would do it, right? But this is what they think black people want. They want like grilled out rappers who in no meaningful way speak to the needs of black people. Um, yeah, that's what they think we want, and I think it speaks to a deep racism, a deep party level racism. The truths of which the GOP needs to reckon with if it is going to remain sustainable.
Mm.
Because the GOP is torn asunder right now. My call for this election is a landslide victory for Joe Biden. Assuming no Trump regime interference.
No butt fuckery happens tomorrow.
Assuming no bullshit. I anticipate.
Despite all the bullshit that's already happened.
Correct.
I think we save that point for tomorrow. Then there'll be a lot to pontificate on over the course of the day, and we're coming up on that spicy 2-hour mark. That I think we have to concede defeat on.
It's a 2-hour show now.
I think we tried the 1 hour thing. It worked a little bit, but this is the vibe. BS will happen. I mean, I think that's an inevitability now.
It'd be like that.
It'd be like that. Closing thoughts.
So, closing thoughts. Buy plates, buy trauma kits. Hope you have bullets in the mag. No, I mean in all seriousness, I think I'm fully anticipating some deep-seated unrest, even if it is a landslide convincing victory for
I said the
Biden.
same. I said the same, and I'll reiterate this tomorrow. But everyone is preparing for unrest, and honestly, like we're pretending like the unrest is coming from any direction other than one, and it's gonna happen in victory or defeat.
I think I do think that there are elements on the left that'll take to the streets.
Really?
I don't think that it's just unidirectional. I think in defeat, not in victory, but in defeat, I think that there are elements committed to getting Trump out, not necessarily to Biden, but to getting Trump out, that would take to the streets armed. And I've been plugged into some groups that are actively anticipating and preparing for a coup, and looking to resist that, looking to prevent the hostile undermining of American democracy. So I think tomorrow is going to be. I think the next few weeks will be much like Corona in general, much like 9/11. Like, we will remember where we were and what we did over the course of the next few weeks. And I think what we do and what happens will shape the American soul for decades to come.